The stars above Titan were silent, far away from Earth. The giant moon of Saturn floated inside endless darkness. Cold storms moved across its orange skies. And deep under the frozen surface, human cities worked day and night. For many years, Titan was only a mining world, a place where humans collected fuel and rare metals for the growing colonies of Earth. But everything changed the night the alien fleet arrived. No warning came, no message, no peaceful signal, only shadows. Commander Elias stood inside the control tower of Titan Station 7, watching the radar screens carefully. At first, the operators believed the objects were meteors. Then the shapes slowed down. 20 giant ships appeared above Titan like dark mountains floating in space. The entire control room became silent. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. One young officer looked at the screen with fear in his eyes. "Sir, those ships are not human," he whispered. Elias felt coldness run through his body. The ships were massive, far bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their black metal bodies blocked the light of Saturn itself. Then suddenly every screen inside the station turned red. Warning, unknown signal detected. The lights flickered, static filled the speakers, and a deep alien voice echoed across the station. "Humans of Titan, surrender immediately." The voice sounded calm, almost emotionless. "We are the Valkyrie Empire. Resistance is meaningless." Fear spread across the room instantly. Many workers started speaking at once. Some wanted to contact Earth. Others wanted evacuation ships prepared. But Commander Elias remained silent, staring at the giant alien ships outside the glass windows. He had fought pirates before, rebel groups before, even border wars, but this felt different. This felt like the beginning of something far worse. Then another message arrived. This time the voice sounded almost amused. "Human emotions make your species weak," the alien commander said. "Fear, love, anger, hope. These things cloud intelligence. We will bring order to your chaotic race." Inside the station, nobody spoke. The words hit harder than any weapon. Suddenly, alarms exploded across the building. "Warning, outer defense grid destroyed." Everyone turned toward the main screen. One of Titan's defense satellites had vanished in a ball of fire. Only one single shot from the alien fleet, and the entire satellite was gone. The room filled with panic. Workers rushed toward escape halls. Soldiers grabbed rifles. Officers shouted into radios. But Commander Elias kept watching the screen carefully. Something felt wrong. The aliens were too calm, too confident, like hunters playing with trapped animals. Then the station received a live transmission from the alien flagship. The image slowly appeared on the giant screen. Gasps filled the room immediately. The alien standing there was tall and thin, with pale gray skin and glowing blue eyes. His armor looked alive, covered with moving lines of light. Behind him stood dozens of silent alien soldiers holding strange weapons. The alien commander looked directly into the camera. "My name is Supreme Commander Varish," he said calmly. "I have studied humanity for many cycles. You are emotional creatures. You fight for family. You sacrifice logic for feelings. That is why your species will never survive against us." Some soldiers inside the control room became angry after hearing those words. But Elias noticed something strange. The alien commander was studying human reactions carefully, almost like a scientist watching animals inside a cage. Then Varish smiled slightly. And somehow that smile felt more dangerous than anger. "To prove my point," the alien commander continued, "we will destroy one human city every hour until Titan surrenders." The screen suddenly changed, showing the city of New Horizon below Titan's icy clouds. Almost 200,000 humans lived there. Families, workers, children, miners, people completely unprepared for war. Fear spread across the station instantly. One officer shouted, "We need to surrender now." Another slammed his fist onto the control desk. "They'll kill everyone," but Commander Elias stayed silent again. Because deep inside, something else was bothering him. The aliens did not come for resources. They did not come for land. They came to prove something. As if humanity itself was part of an experiment. Then suddenly a weak emergency signal appeared from outside Titan orbit. The operator quickly answered it. Static covered the speakers for several seconds before a terrified voice finally spoke. "This is Captain Mira of the patrol ship Atlas." Her breathing sounded fast and shaken. "They are not alone," she warned. "There are hundreds more ships hiding behind Saturn." The entire control room froze. Even Commander Elias felt fear rising inside him now. Hundreds more ships. This was not an invasion. This was extermination. Then Captain Mira spoke one final sentence before the transmission died forever. "And Commander, they already destroyed Earth's outer colonies." Silence filled the station. Nobody moved, nobody spoke, far outside the windows. The giant alien fleet slowly moved closer through the darkness of space. And for the first time in human history, Titan understood one terrifying truth. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and the galaxy had arrived with war. Asterisk, the people of Titan did not sleep that night, across the frozen moon. Warning sirens echoed through every human city. Factories stopped working, mining stations closed their gates. And military bunkers opened for the first time in many years. Fear spread faster than the icy storms outside. Families crowded inside underground shelters, children cried quietly, and thousands of workers stared at the orange sky above them, waiting for death to fall from space, far above Titan. The alien fleet remained perfectly still, like dark gods watching helpless prey. Inside Titan Station 7, Commander Elias stood in front of the giant observation window with tired eyes. The glowing rings of Saturn reflected across the glass, but his attention stayed fixed on the enemy ships. 20 massive vessels floated in silence. Yet Captain Mira's warning still echoed inside his mind. Hundreds more ships hiding behind Saturn. Humanity was facing an enemy far larger than anyone imagined. Suddenly the station lights dimmed again. A young communications officer rushed across the control room, breathing hard. "Commander, we intercepted another alien transmission," she said nervously. "Put it on screen," Elias ordered. The image appeared instantly. Supreme Commander Varesh stood inside his enormous throne chamber, surrounded by glowing holograms and silent guards. But this time something was different. The alien commander looked curious, almost interested. "Humans of Titan," Varesh said calmly, "you have exactly 1 hour remaining. After that, New Horizon will be destroyed. No anger, no emotion, only cold certainty." Then Varesh slowly walked toward the camera. His glowing blue eyes focused directly ahead. "Our studies show human emotions create weakness during war," he continued. "Fear causes panic. Love causes irrational sacrifice. Hope causes resistance against impossible odds. Your species survives through emotion instead of logic. Tonight, we will prove why that makes humanity inferior." The transmission ended. Silence filled the control room again. One officer cursed quietly under his breath. Another slammed his hands onto the table in frustration. "They're treating us like an experiment," he growled. Elias finally turned away from the window. "Maybe we are," he answered quietly. At that moment, another alarm exploded across the station. "Warning, unknown object entering Titan atmosphere." The main screen zoomed toward the sky above New Horizon City. A giant black object was falling through the clouds, burning bright orange from the heat of entry. People inside the control room watched in horror. "It's a bomb," someone whispered. "No," Elias said carefully. "It's too slow." The object crashed into the frozen plains outside New Horizon, sending snow and ice high into the air. Then everything became silent again. No explosion came. No attack followed. The object simply sat there half buried in the ice. Thousands of civilians watched from the city walls through binoculars and drones. Confused and terrified, then the object opened. A giant metal door slowly unfolded outward, releasing cold steam into the air, and something stepped out. The control room became completely silent. It looked human, but also not human. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark armor connected directly into its pale skin. Metal tubes ran across its body like veins, and glowing blue eyes scanned the frozen battlefield calmly. One terrified operator zoomed the camera closer. Then everyone saw the truth. The thing had once been human. Its face was damaged and filled with cybernetic implants, but parts of its human features still remained. A shocked officer stepped backward. "My God," she whispered. The creature suddenly looked directly toward the drone camera. Then it smiled, a cold, broken smile, and without warning, it attacked. The former human moved faster than anything the soldiers had ever seen. Within seconds, Titan security vehicles near the crash site exploded into flames. Bullets bounced off the creature's armor. Missiles failed to slow it down. Dozens of trained soldiers died almost instantly. People across Titan watched the battle live through emergency broadcasts. Panic spread everywhere. Some civilians tried escaping the cities. Others begged military forces for protection. But the worst moment came seconds later, because the creature spoke. Its distorted mechanical voice echoed across every communication channel on Titan. "Human emotions are inefficient," it said coldly. "The Valkyrie removed mine. I no longer feel fear. I no longer feel pain. And now, I no longer feel mercy." Commander Elias felt his blood turn cold. The aliens were not simply conquering worlds. They were changing peoples. Snowstorms crashed against the walls of New Horizon. Emergency lights flashed across the city, while terrified civilians rushed through underground tunnels. Above them, explosions shook the frozen streets, and the sound of gunfire echoed endlessly through the icy night. The creature called Subject 8 was still alive, and Titan's defenses were collapsing inside the underground command bunker. Commander Elias stared at the battlefield hologram with exhausted eyes. Red warning symbols covered almost every district outside the city walls. Security teams were retreating block by block, unable to stop the monster moving through the streets. Every report sounded worse than the last. Sector 4 lost. Defense line broken. Civilian transports destroyed. No effect from heavy weapons. Fear filled the command room like poison. Some officers had already lost hope. One older commander slammed his hands against the table angrily. "We cannot fight this thing," he shouted. "It tears through armored vehicles like paper." Another officer spoke quietly, almost shaking. "Maybe surrender is the only choice left." The room fell silent after those words. Commander Elias slowly looked around at every frightened face in the bunker. Then he spoke calmly. "If we surrender today, humanity dies tomorrow." Nobody answered, because deep inside, everyone knew he was right. Suddenly the bunker doors opened hard. A group of injured soldiers rushed inside, carrying a wounded young woman covered in blood and frost. Her combat armor was badly damaged, and one mechanical arm barely worked anymore. But despite her injuries, her eyes remained focused and sharp. Captain Mira had returned alive. The entire room stared in shock. Elias moved toward her immediately. "You survived," he said quietly. "Barely," Mira answered while removing her cracked helmet. "They destroyed my ship near Saturn. What happened out there?" Elias asked. Mira took a slow breath before answering. "The fleet behind Saturn is real," she whispered. "Hundreds of Valkyrie warships. But that's not the worst part." The room became completely silent again. Mira activated a small data device from her armor. A hologram appeared above the table instantly. Several giant structures floated behind Saturn's rings. each one larger than entire human cities at first. Nobody understood what they were looking at. Then one scientist turned pale. "Those aren't ships," he whispered fearfully. "They're factories," Mira nodded slowly. "The Valkyrie are building something," she explained. "And they're using captured humans as labor." Gasps spread through the bunker. Millions of humans had vanished from Earth's outer colonies only days earlier. Now everyone understood why. The Valkyrie were not just invading. They were preparing for a massive war. Then the bunker shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling while alarms screamed again. "Warning, outer wall breached. Subject 8 had reached the city." Panic exploded inside the room instantly. Soldiers grabbed rifles and rushed toward defensive positions, while civilians screamed through the tunnels outside. Mira looked toward Elias seriously. "We need to stop that thing now," she said. "You fought it?" Elias asked. "For a few minutes," she answered. "And I noticed something strange." Elias narrowed his eyes carefully. "What?" Mira hesitated for a moment. "It reacts to human emotions," she said quietly. The room looked confused when civilians cried. "It slowed down," she continued, "when soldiers protected each other." It hesitated, almost like part of the human inside it is still alive. Elias immediately remembered the same hesitation near the evacuation transport earlier. A small moment, but real. Then suddenly another explosion shook the bunker harder than before. Emergency lights failed for several seconds, leaving everyone in darkness, and during that silence, they heard it, heavy footsteps. Slow, metallic, coming from the tunnel outside. Every soldier inside the bunker aimed their weapons toward the door instantly. The footsteps stopped. Then Subject 8's distorted voice echoed through the hallway speakers. "Commander Elias," it growled coldly. "Supreme Commander Varish requests your surrender." No one moved, no one breathed. The giant bunker doors slowly bent inward as the creature forced them open with terrifying strength. Bright sparks flew across the room. Then the monster stepped inside. Its armor was covered with bullet marks and frozen blood. One glowing blue eye flickered strangely while damaged mechanical parts hissed steam into the air. Several nervous soldiers opened fire immediately. The creature moved faster than human eyes could follow. Gunfire exploded everywhere. Within seconds, 3 soldiers crashed across the room like broken dolls. Panic filled the bunker again, but then something unexpected happened. A small girl suddenly appeared from behind the civilian crowd nearby. She could not have been older than 8 years old. Her face was wet with tears, and in her shaking hands she held a small stuffed toy. Everyone froze. Even Subject 8 stopped moving completely. The little girl looked directly at the monster. "Please," she whispered softly. "Don't hurt my dad." Silence covered the bunker. The creature stared at her without moving. Its mechanical breathing became uneven. Pain flashed across its damaged face. Then suddenly fragmented memories exploded inside its mind. A child laughing, a family smiling. A promise made long ago, for the first time. Subject 8 looked afraid. It stepped backward slowly while holding its head in pain. "No." It whispered weakly. The blue glow in its eyes flickered violently. Then the creature screamed louder than before. A scream filled with rage, fear, and something deeply human. Far above Titan, inside the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Varish watched the scene unfold with growing concern. Because the experiment was failing, human emotions were returning. And if emotions could break Valkyrie control, then humanity itself might become far more dangerous than the aliens ever imagined. The scream of Subject 8 echoed through the bunker long after the creature disappeared into the dark tunnels. Nobody moved for several seconds. The soldiers stood frozen with rifles still raised. Civilians held their breath. And the small girl remained standing in the middle of the room, clutching her toy tightly. Commander Elias slowly lowered his weapon. For the first time since the invasion began, Confusion replaced fear inside his mind. The monster could have killed everyone, but it ran away instead. Captain Mira looked toward the damaged tunnel entrance carefully. It remembered something, she whispered. Elias nodded slowly. Yes, he answered. And the Valkyrie are terrified of that. Far above Titan, inside the massive alien flagship, Supreme Commander Varish stood silently before a giant holographic display. His glowing blue eyes watched replay footage from the bunker again and again. Every hesitation, every emotional reaction, every second of weakness from Subject 8. Around him, several alien officers waited nervously. Finally, one of them stepped forward carefully. "Commander," the officer said quietly, "the human memories are spreading faster than predicted." Varish remained silent for a moment. Then he spoke in a cold voice. "Emotion is a disease," he said. "It destroys logic. It creates fear, rebellion, and chaos. But humans—" He paused while staring at the image of the little girl on the screen. "Humans turn emotion into strength." The room became silent instantly. Even the Valkyrie officers looked uncomfortable hearing those words. Varish suddenly turned toward them sharply. "Prepare the second phase," he ordered. "If Titan refuses surrender, we will erase the city completely, back inside New Horizon." The underground bunker had become crowded with injured soldiers and frightened civilians. Medical teams rushed through the halls while emergency generators flickered constantly from the damage above. Commander Elias stood beside a large tactical map, studying the city carefully. Titan's defenses were almost gone, half the outer districts already burned in ruins. And alien ships still surrounded the moon without attacking fully. As if they were waiting for something, Captain Mira walked beside him quietly, her injured mechanical arm sparking softly. "They could destroy us any time," she said. "So why are they delaying?" Elias narrowed his eyes at the map. "Because this is not only a war," he answered. "It's a lesson." Myra looked confused. "The Valkyrie want to prove emotions make us weak," Elias continued. "They want the galaxy to watch humanity break." Suddenly another officer rushed into the room. "Breathing hard, Commander," he said quickly. "We found something strange in the lower tunnels." Minutes later, Elias and Mira followed the soldiers deep beneath the city. The underground tunnels were cold, dark, and filled with old mining equipment abandoned years earlier. At the end of one tunnel, several nervous soldiers stood aiming flashlights toward the shadows ahead. And there, sitting against the frozen wall, was Subject 8. The giant creature looked broken now. Parts of its armor had been ripped away, exposing damaged human skin underneath the machinery. Its glowing blue eye flickered weakly while blood dripped onto the icy floor. The soldiers immediately aimed their rifles. But Elias raised his hand, stopping them. Subject 8 slowly looked up. For the first time, its voice sounded human. "They are coming," it whispered painfully. Elias stepped closer carefully. "Who are you?" he asked. The creature closed its eyes for a moment, as if trying to remember. Then finally it answered. "Daniel Reyes." Myra's face changed instantly. "I know that name," she said softly. "He was a captain from the Europa Wars 3 years ago." Daniel nodded weakly. "The Valkyrie captured my unit," he whispered. "They changed us." His mechanical hands trembled violently. "They removed fear first," he continued. "Then pain, then love." His voice cracked slightly. Blue energy fire filled the frozen tunnel. Alien soldiers poured through the shattered ceiling while civilians screamed deeper inside the underground shelters. Commander Elias grabbed a fallen rifle and fired instantly. The first Valkyrie soldier crashed against the icy wall, but 3 more replaced him immediately. The battle became chaos within seconds. Captain Mira pulled injured soldiers behind mining machines, while defensive turrets opened fire across the tunnel entrance. Sparks exploded everywhere, smoke filled the air, and the sound of alien weapons echoed like thunder underground. But in the middle of the battle, Subject 8 did something nobody expected. Daniel Reyes turned against the Valkyrie. The giant hybrid soldier roared with rage and charged directly into the alien attackers. His mechanical arms smashed through metal armor like glass, sending enemy soldiers flying across the tunnel floor. The Valkyrie hesitated instantly to them. Daniel was supposed to be a perfect weapon, emotionless, loyal, controlled. Instead, he had become something dangerous, something human again. Commander Elias watched carefully while firing beside him. Every time Daniel protected another person, his movements became stronger, faster, more alive. The emotions inside him were no longer weakness, they were fuel, far above Titan. Supreme Commander Varesh stared at the battle through holographic screens with growing anger. Several Valkyrie officers waited nervously around him, afraid to speak. Finally, Varesh slammed his hand onto the control platform hard enough to crack the metal surface. "Impossible," he hissed coldly. "Human emotion should create instability, not strength." One scientist stepped forward carefully. "Commander, the emotional response appears to increase human survival instincts," he explained nervously. "And their willingness to sacrifice for others creates unpredictable combat behavior." Varesh turned toward him slowly. "Then humanity itself is the flaw," he answered. "Prepare the orbital strike, back inside New Horizon." The underground battle continued, growing worse. More alien troops entered the city every minute. Entire districts above the surface burned under enemy attack. The orange skies of Titan glowed with fire visible for miles. Inside the tunnels, Daniel suddenly froze in place. His glowing eye flickered violently while pain crossed his face again. Mira noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" she shouted. Daniel grabbed his head tightly. "They're activating the control signal," he growled painfully. "What signal?" Elias asked. Daniel struggled to speak. "The Valkyrie placed command chips inside us," he whispered. "If activated." He fell to one knee suddenly. "They can force us to obey." Before anyone could react, Daniel's body jerked violently. The blue glow in his eyes turned brighter. Colder, his breathing changed instantly. Then he slowly stood again, but something was different now. The human pain on his face had vanished. Only silence remained. Soldiers around him raised weapons nervously. "Daniel?" Mira asked carefully. The giant hybrid soldier looked toward them with empty eyes. Then he lifted his weapon slowly, directly at Commander Elias. The tunnel became silent, except for distant explosions above the city. Elias stared at Daniel without moving. "You're fighting it," he said calmly. "No," Daniel answered in a cold mechanical voice. "The human known as Daniel Reyes no longer exists." Several soldiers prepared to fire, but Elias raised his hand again, stopping them, because deep inside, he noticed something important. Daniel's weapon was shaking slightly. A tiny movement, almost invisible, but enough. The human part inside him was still alive. Then suddenly a child's voice echoed from deeper in the tunnel. "Captain Daniel?" Everyone turned instantly. The little girl from the bunker earlier stood there holding her stuffed toy again. Despite soldiers trying to pull her back, her frightened eyes looked directly at the giant hybrid soldier. "My daddy said heroes protect people," she whispered softly. "You're a hero too, right?" Silence filled the tunnel completely. Daniel froze. His glowing blue eyes flickered rapidly. Then painful memories exploded inside his mind once again. A family dinner, a promise to protect Earth. His younger sister laughing before he left for war. And the moment the Valkyrie captured him in deep space, Daniel suddenly screamed in agony. The control signal fought against his returning emotions violently. Cracks spread across the mechanical implants covering his body. Blue sparks exploded from his armor. Then with one terrifying roar, Daniel ripped the control device directly from his own chest. Blood covered the icy floor instantly. The Valkyrie soldiers nearby stepped backward in shock, because no subject had ever broken free before. Daniel dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. But this time his eyes looked human again. "They lied to us," he whispered painfully. "They fear emotions because emotions unite people." Then emergency alarms screamed across the tunnel again. Louder than before, warning, orbital weapon charging. Every screen inside the bunker flashed red. Commander Elias immediately looked toward the tactical display. A giant energy cannon aboard the Valkyrie flagship was powering up directly above New Horizon. One shot would erase the entire city. Millions would die instantly. Fear spread through the soldiers again, but Daniel slowly stood back up. Despite blood pouring from his wounds, there may still be a way to stop them, he said weakly. Elias looked at him carefully. "How?" Daniel pointed toward the surface above them. "There's a communication tower connected to the Valkyrie fleet network," he explained. "If we reach it, we can send a signal through their systems." "What kind of signal?" Mira asked. Daniel looked toward them with exhausted eyes. "A human one," he answered. Outside, Titan burned beneath alien warships. And for the first time since the invasion began, humanity finally prepared to fight back. The surface of Titan had become a battlefield of fire and ice. Black smoke rose into the orange sky, while alien ships moved above the frozen cities like giant predators. Explosions shook the ground every few seconds, and the cold winds carried the sound of distant screams across the ruins of New Horizon. Humanity was losing. But for the first time, they also had hope. Inside the underground bunker, Commander Elias studied the holographic map carefully. A single blinking point appeared near the center of the destroyed city. The old communication tower. It stood on a frozen mountain ridge outside New Horizon, connected directly to Titan's deep space network. If Daniel was right, they could use it to send a signal into the Valkyrie fleet systems. A signal powerful enough to break the control over the human prisoners inside the alien factories. But reaching the tower would be almost impossible. Alien patrols covered the surface. Warships watched from above. And the orbital cannon was still charging slowly in space. They had less than 2 hours before New Horizon disappeared forever. Captain Mira loaded fresh energy cells into her rifle while listening quietly. "So we fight through an alien army, climb a frozen mountain, and hack the most advanced fleet in the galaxy," she said dryly. Daniel gave a weak smile. "When you say it like that, it sounds difficult." A few nervous soldiers laughed softly for the first time in days, and that small moment mattered. Commander Elias noticed it immediately, even surrounded by death. Humans still found ways to lift each other up. That was their real strength. Minutes later, the strike team left the bunker through an old mining tunnel leading toward the surface. Snowstorms hit them instantly after the outer doors opened. The frozen winds of Titan howled across the destroyed streets while distant fires burned between collapsed buildings. The city looked dead. Broken military vehicles covered the roads. Shattered drones lay buried under snow, and dark alien ships floated silently overhead. The team moved carefully through the ruins. Avoiding enemy patrols whenever possible, Daniel walked in front despite his injuries. His damaged armor sparked constantly, but he refused to slow down. As they crossed a destroyed market district, they suddenly heard faint crying nearby. Mira raised her rifle carefully. Then she spotted movement under a collapsed transport vehicle. 2 young boys were trapped beneath the wreckage. Freezing and terrified, one soldier immediately whispered, "We don't have time." The orbital cannon countdown continued ticking inside everyone's helmets. Every minute mattered now, but Elias looked toward the trapped children without hesitation. "We help them," he said firmly. The soldiers exchanged worried looks. Stopping here could expose the entire mission. But Daniel suddenly stepped forward. "No one gets left behind," he growled quietly. Together the team lifted the heavy wreckage while enemy patrol ships passed overhead dangerously close. The boys were finally pulled free just seconds before alien drones entered the street nearby. The entire team hid silently beneath broken buildings while blue searchlights swept across the snow. One wrong movement would mean death. The younger boy trembled from fear beside Elias. Then Daniel slowly removed part of his armored cloak and wrapped it around him. The child looked up at the giant hybrid soldier nervously. "Are you human?" he whispered. Daniel stayed silent for a moment, then finally answered softly, "I'm trying to be again." Far above Titan, Supreme Commander Varesh watched the human strike team moving across the city through surveillance drones. His cold expression darkened when he saw humans risking the mission to save children. "They continue choosing emotion over logic," one Valkyrie officer said with disgust. But Varesh did not answer immediately because deep inside, he was beginning to understand something terrifying. Humans did not survive despite emotion. They survived because of it. Meanwhile, the strike team finally reached the frozen. The signal spread through space like a storm. Across the hidden Valkyrie factories behind Saturn, alarms exploded inside massive prison complexes. Human workers suddenly stopped moving. Machines shut down, tools fell to the floor, and millions of controlled minds awakened at the same time. Memories returned like fire: families, homes, laughter, promises. Everything the Valkyrie tried to erase came flooding back. And with those memories came emotion, anger, hope, love. The very things the Valkyrie feared most. Inside the giant factory stations, human prisoners turned against their alien guards instantly. Workers used mining tools as weapons. Engineers destroyed control systems. And captured soldiers fought side by side for freedom. For the first time in Valkyrie history, rebellion spread through their empire faster than their commanders could stop it. Far above Titan, chaos erupted across the alien fleet. Entire warships suddenly lost communication. Prison decks exploded in revolt. And human test subjects broke free from Valkyrie laboratories. Supreme Commander Varesh stood inside his flagship, staring at hundreds of emergency warnings flashing across the bridge. His officers shouted desperately around him. Factory 7 lost. Human subjects escaping containment. Multiple ships no longer responding. The rebellion is spreading. Varesh clenched his fists tightly. All his years of study, all his experiments, all his careful plans were collapsing because of one thing: human emotion. Then another officer turned toward him nervously. "Commander, the orbital cannon is unstable." Varesh's eyes widened slightly for the first time. The rebellion inside the fleet had damaged the weapon systems controlling the massive cannon above Titan. Energy levels surged dangerously across the screens. If the cannon exploded now, it could destroy both Titan and part of the Valkyrie fleet itself. Meanwhile, on the frozen mountain ridge, Commander Elias and Captain Mira watched the alien ships above falling into confusion. Explosions lit the sky while human prisoners hijacked transports and attacked Valkyrie positions from inside. The invasion was breaking apart, but the battle was not over yet. Outside the communication tower, Daniel Reyes still fought alone against the remaining gunships. His damaged armor burned, blood covered the snow beneath him, and one mechanical arm barely moved anymore. But he kept fighting, because now he was fighting as a human again. One alien gunship crashed into the mountain after Daniel tore through its engine core with his bare mechanical hand. The second exploded moments later under heavy human rocket fire from below. But the third gunship opened direct plasma fire against him. The explosion threw Daniel across the frozen ridge violently. Mira screamed his name and rushed outside while Elias covered her from the tower entrance. Snow and smoke filled the battlefield. Then she found him lying near the cliff edge, barely breathing. Daniel looked up weakly as she knelt beside him. "Did it work?" he whispered. Mira smiled through exhausted tears. "Yes," she answered softly. "You gave them back their freedom, for the first time since his capture." Peace appeared on Daniel's face, far above Titan. Supreme Commander Varesh finally made his decision. If humanity cannot be controlled, he said coldly, then humanity will be erased. He activated the flagship's final command personally. The unstable orbital cannon began charging beyond safe limits, glowing brighter than a small sun above Titan. Every surviving human on the moon looked toward the sky in fear. The blast would destroy everything, Titan, the fleet, and possibly Saturn's nearby colonies as well. Commander Elias saw the rising energy levels immediately on the tower screens. He's going to fire anyway, Mira shouted. We can't stop it in time. For one terrible moment, silence filled the tower. Then Daniel slowly pushed himself back to his feet outside. Despite his broken body, Elias looked toward him in shock. What are you doing? He asked. Daniel stared up at the glowing cannon above the clouds. There's one way, he answered quietly, before anyone realized his plan. Daniel activated the engines built into his damaged armor. Blue fire exploded behind him, and he launched himself directly into the sky toward the Valkyrie flagship. Mira ran toward the edge of the ridge desperately. Daniel! She screamed, but he never looked back, high above Titan. Alien soldiers watched in disbelief as the lone human hybrid crashed through the outer hull of the flagship like a meteor. Emergency alarms filled the ship instantly. Daniel fought through the corridors alone, tearing through defense systems while explosions spread across the unstable cannon reactors. Supreme Commander Varesh finally came face to face with him inside the reactor chamber. The alien commander stared coldly at the broken hybrid standing before him. You chose emotion, Varesh said quietly. Yes, Daniel answered. And that's why humanity will survive. Then Daniel overloaded the reactor core. The final explosion lit the skies of Titan brighter than daylight. The orbital cannon shattered apart, the flagship broke into burning pieces, and shockwaves rolled across space itself, below. Humans across Titan watched the giant alien warship fall from the sky in flames. The Valkyrie fleet began retreating immediately afterward. Leaderless and broken by rebellion from within, the Battle of Titan was over, days later. Rescue ships from Earth finally arrived at the frozen moon. They found destroyed cities, burning wreckage, and exhausted survivors standing together beneath Titan's orange skies. Humanity had suffered terrible losses, but they had survived, and across the galaxy, one truth now spread faster than fear itself. Humans were dangerous not because they lacked emotion, but because emotion made them impossible to break.